got a 5G ad? Congratulations. Early stream? No. This is the same time I've been streaming for every Monday for basically the past, I don't know, 7 months or so. Not really an early stream for, maybe early for you. Oh, you know why it might be early for you? Maybe you live in a portion of the country that doesn't change your clock for the daylight saving, where I do. So it's the same time for me. Shut up, Haya. Don't start. Are you just looking to get bullied by chat again? You just coming in here swinging like that? Hello, Tofu. I always try to do Splatoon 1 music because I'm not too familiar with it, and I'm sure it sounds refreshing to the average listener. I just dropped some frames on my end. That's weird. Can you replace me on Destiny Troops? Oh my gosh, if you think you can lead these morons for 2.5 years, be my guest. There's a reason why I don't have much hair left. I'm assuming though that you are a younger person who still has your hair, so go ahead and knock yourself up. A music box version of the song plays when you use the bomb launcher special. Okay, but the title of the song is Bomb Rush Blush. So that makes sense. Can I join Luau Jr.? Bruh, don't patronize me like that. You know I'm too good for Luau Jr. Who else is on Luau Jr., huh? Or is that the name of all of your, like, 20 subs that you have? So far, it's just me, but the guys might bump you. Oh, good, yeah. That's fine. I'd love to be on a team with you, Sir Skit. When lands become a thing, you should reach out to me. You're not gonna find a better in-person anchor than me. I guarantee you that. Unless I don't. Sluau Jr. going to... Okay, are we just going to quote Battle of the Free Agents from now until forever? Is that what's going on here? I know Skit has told you about Luau Jr., but have you heard of Stargaze CDS? I have over 2,000. Well, if you combine CDS and VDS, I have about 4,000 wins with those things. But I don't really use either one of those much anymore. Since our natural anchor retired, I've been doing anchor stuff exclusively for Destiny, almost. And that rolly hop thing that all the kids are doing, I'm not into that nonsense. And so if that's what Stargaze CDS is, what is that, the Stargaze team that plays exclusively in the CDS tournament? So psyched for Battle of the Free Agents. I'm guarantee you there has been a team called Battle of the Free Agents at some point. Stargaze CD's nuts? Okay, well. I don't know about that one. I don't know. I feel like if you can do CDS, CD's nuts, I feel like you can do D's nuts about anything. How about Fantasy V Carbon? How about Fantasy V Carb D's nuts? See? Like you guys are just stretching things now. Wow, dude, yeah. Destiny's nuts troops. How about that? Silver, why are you asking how much sleep my wife has gotten? She got enough sleep. She don't need you. Oh, 3 hours? Okay, maybe she didn't. Welcome back to the Nutscast. You know, I was considering getting rid of the adult content filter or whatever, mature filter, mature warning for this show, since I don't say a lot of poopy words anymore, at least on broadcast. But if we're just going to talk about nuts all day, this is all Stu's fault, and JPEG for encouraging it, so... It's, I blame those two for encouraging this behavior. I don't need that. Nuts diving. Well, don't forget about the team that was just called straight up Nuts. That won beta bracket back in November or something. The pickup team. Their name was something else before that too, and we made them switch it. And that's what they switched to. They switched to Nuts. Why did we let them get away with that? Oh, I see why. I need to delete some crap. There. Well, Tofu, if you want a tournament to happen in this community, you need to go make it instead of waiting for someone else to do it. Step on up to the plate. Use this as background noise. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I guess I'm the reason you're hearing the word nuts, because no one else is saying it. They're saying it in chat, but you can't hear the chat. It's just me. So I'll refrain from the nut talk going forward here. Yes, Tofu, she's being for real. Cora wouldn't lie about something like that. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze right at the start of this. And sometimes my sneezes are really gross. Let's see how this goes. Yeet! Go! Don't you have something else to do, Yeet? Is this the best use of your time? Don't you have... Shouldn't you be tweeting something ridiculous on the SAC account right now? Jesus Christ. Oh no. You know what? Next time we play Scar Days, I'm squid bagging the snot out of you. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, while you're recovering from losing an hour of sleep due to daylight savings, trying to counterpick turf war against your opponents in the upcoming SAC finals, taking your friends to your Xbox to play Fortnite today. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. News! Upcoming tournaments that are of interest to the casual listener of the Popcast, unless you're Yeet. Low Ink is coming up not this upcoming weekend, but the next weekend. Once again, I've been saying this in the IPL chat pretty consistently, and I'll say it again here. Registration is closing early this time around. It is closing, I believe, at 7 p.m., 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday before the tournament. So, do your TOs a favor. Sign up now, or some point next week. I guess you don't need to sign up for a tournament 2 weeks out. Maybe that's too much to ask. But don't be that team that goes in to try to sign up on Saturday, and then you see registration is closed, and then you go into help desk, and you're like, well, nobody told me that registration closed early. You're getting the news right here first. This is the advantage you get of listening to the Popcast. You get special insider information you can't get anywhere else. And I'm telling you right here and right now, sign up early, or you're going to be a grumpy grumberson when Saturday Low Ink rolls around. It's been announced that the Low Ink is looking to lowering the skill cap a little bit. Yes, I work for IPL, but everything I say on the podcast does not represent IPL. It represents my pure 100% unaffected thoughts from the outside world. So I'm not going to sit here and make any brand. I'm not like going to sit here and say what that means that the bar is being lowered, and I don't know who the last team that's going to be allowed in from underneath the bar or from over the bar, I guess. So just be mindful of that. If your team gets told it can't play, don't throw a hissy fit. Just take it as a compliment, I guess. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Midpoint Cup and LSL are going to be happening after this. After Low Ink, the week after Low Ink, which I believe is the first weekend in April, Saturday the 3rd. Here's what I saw last time I checked this. Minnow Cup and Little Squid League were happening on the same day at the same time. I highly doubt this will be the case going forward. Here is my question, though. Why are these two tournaments happening on the same weekend at all? Last weekend, we had LSL on Saturday and Middle Cup on Sunday, which I thought was like, okay, that's fine. That can only mean that there's something happening this Saturday that would exclude those two tournaments from running. And it is not. So why was Minnow Cup on Sunday when it could have just been on this past Saturday is beyond me. But I guess maybe I think they're just trying to set a trend of being on the first weekend of the month when you don't have to do that. So I would hope those two organizations find a way to work it out so where, hey, you get this Saturday and we get this other Saturday, so they don't have to do Sundays. And it's funny because the person who has a seat at the table at Minnow Cup is literally in a room right behind me and in chat right now. So I probably could have figured this out before I went on live today. And it looks like Miss Popman is saying Minnow Cup is on the 3rd and LSL will be on the 10th. Okay, cool. That makes sense. They shouldn't be on the same weekend to begin with anyways, especially when there's nothing going on. Now, what was going on Saturday that would exclude any of these tournaments from happening? I don't know. The Aquatic Cup happened, but that was at night, and it's also an open invite tournament, so it doesn't really matter. Maybe there was like some Saturday morning coffee or something like that happened that I wasn't aware of. But even if that was the case, who cares? Like, I think the days of us having to move low-level skill cap tournaments to favor open invite tournaments are gone. That was the case in the past where it would be like, hey, we're having a Saturday morning coffee or an in the zone. Can you guys just not run your tournaments at all? And we found out, oh, wait, we can just run these at the same time as in the zone and Saturday morning coffee. It's not like low-level teams are going to play in those tournaments because they don't have any other option. And it's also really makes no sense to grow a community by like taking away an option from low-level and saying, this is the only tournament you get to play in this weekend. So I would look, if I was a low-level TO, I would just be like, look, are there any other low-level tournaments on this Saturday? If the answer is no, then let's run it. If somebody from the open invite tournament DMs us and says, hey, we need you to move off of this, I'd be like, come on, let's have a conversation here. There's no reason why we can't run these two tournaments at the same time. That's not the case. I feel like that was the case in the past. That's not anymore. Low levels got too much clout now. Yay. Today, we're going to be talking about the Midpoint Draft Cup. Or not the Midpoint Draft Cup, just the straight up Midpoint Cup. I don't know if this is numbered. I think it's just the March edition. Midpoint Cup March. So there. Not Midpoint number 2, but it's the second Midpoint tournament. Why am I talking about this? This doesn't fall into low-level tournament status of the Popcast, does it? No, technically it doesn't. When I first created the Popcast, I didn't have envisioned that I'd be talking about a tournament like this. A couple of reasons why I am. Number one, I've always said we need to look more into mid-level stuff. And it would be cool if somebody else were to create their own podcast to talk about exclusively mid-level things and then whatever other opinionated things they want to throw in there, like I usually do. And instead of just waiting for somebody to do that, if I have a week where I know I don't have a lot to talk about, I'll do it. So let's dip into mid-level stuff. Another reason is to help grow myself as a commentator. It really helps me. I'm a much better commentator when I actually know something about the teams I'm talking about. I think most of you know me for doing grand finals of Low Ink, which this month will actually be my 12th grand finals that I will commentate for Low Ink. If they want me back for the 12th straight month in a row, which is awesome. And I love doing Low Ink commentary, and I feel like that's my best because I always know a lot of information about the teams that are playing in those final sets that we commentate at the end of the tournament there. But I also kind of fill in for other things that IPL has, SOS, testing grounds. Maybe I'll do one of the Australian tournaments if they need some help over there. I try not to volunteer for everything they do because we need more commentators. So it's better for me to just kind of step away and let other people get some experience because we need to grow more commentators in this scene. There is a severe lack of commentators and an even bigger lack of good commentators. So I need to step back and let other people get some experience with that. But I'll step in every now and then. And usually when I do an SOS or a testing grounds, it's near the end of the tournament. I'm usually doing grand finals, and the teams that play in it, I don't really know that well. I mean, it is frustrating because a lot of people do. A lot of people know a lot about the upper echelon of teams and pickups and things like that usually make finals of these tournaments. And I don't. And I feel like my commentary kind of suffers from that. So dipping my toes into more higher level tournaments, examinations like I do on the Popcast, will help familiarize me more with some of these other teams so that if I ever come across them in my commentary in the future, I'll be better prepared to talk about them. Micklin group was only us and Luau. Yes, we will get to that. We will get to that group because I have a lot to say about that. And I did some research last night to figure out why that was the case. But first, this month is the 1-year anniversary of Destiny Troops winning Low Ink March of 2020. Wow, he never misses an opportunity to bring that up. Is that the highlight of his career? Is he just going to ride that out until he dies? I might. What are you going to do about it? Here's why I'm bringing it up, though. We're talking about the difference in skill level between SAC versus Low Ink. What it used to be and what it is right now. When we won Low Ink, we finished our final ranking in SAC that season, which was going on at the same time, was number 21. Also, the team that won the month before us in February, Kolopsia, their final standings in SAC that same season, they finished number 15. So back last season, if you won Low Inc., that means you were around like 15 to 20 as far as the ranking for SAC is concerned. Now, where can you finish in Low Inc. and hope to finish in SAC this season? Well, the top 8 now includes Red Sun, Symphony twice, and C Boys. All 4 teams that participated in Low Inc. this past month, or not this past month, but in this year. But in this past month, one of those teams was in Alpha Bracket, got eliminated in like losers round 2. Another one was in Beta Bracket. Another one was in Gamma Bracket. So we've gone from you could win Low Inc. and not even be close to making the top 8 to you can be a Gamma Bracket team and be in top 8. That's what. How did this happen? Because in theory, this should not be happening. So how did we get to this point? Well, that's the topic of today's episode of the Popcast. First off, one thing I do want to point out. I mentioned Red Sun being in the top 8. Why is that the case? And I don't think I'm breaking any breaking news. I haven't seen anything in the SAC news about this. But I've seen the exotic players tweet out some things about this. So I don't think I'm saying anything I shouldn't be saying. I feel like this is all already out there. And if it's not, SAC can yell at me later. But I mean, so we have a captain's chat for the top 8 teams. And they've been pinging us pretty consistently about like, hey, you guys need to let us know when you're available for this upcoming Saturday so that we can play, so that we can like find a time to do the tournament that works for all 8 teams. And they gave us like a document to fill out, like a group meetup thing, whatever. I don't know. I just said like, hey, Destiny Troops, we're fine with whatever. Just you guys pick the day, or you guys pick the time. We'll be there. It doesn't really matter to us. Exotic. The only EU team was the only team who didn't respond to it, despite being pinged multiple times, both publicly and privately. If you look at Splatoon, if you look at their news channel, like the last 2 or 3 posts they do is like, hey, anybody for Exotic, please respond to us, please. So like they tried to get their attention, and they didn't. So some teams said they couldn't play before 5 o'clock. So the SAC finals got put at 5 o'clock. And when that got announced, then Exotic responded with like, bro, we can't play at this time. We're an EU team. Which I think SAC staff politely said, bruh, are you for real? So Exotic dropped. And yes, I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but Red Sun was announced as the team that is going to be filling that spot. So, Red Sun, come on down. You are the next contestant on Can You Follow Simple Directions? And it turns out, yes, they can. So there you go. Do your TOs a favor and actually respond when they're pinging you. It might work out to your advantage if you do. So that being said, how did we get to this point? Now that Red Sun is in here, and Red Sun made beta last month. Now, they won the Midpoint Cup Rainmaker tournament on Sunday. But we have a Gamma Bracket and Beta Bracket team in the top 8 of SAC, when in the past season, you could win Low Inc. and not even be outside of the top 15. Crazy things going on here. Again, how did we get to this point? Let's talk about it. First off, Low Inc. back in the day was Div 5 and below. It has now switched to Div 4 and below. That alone obviously brings it closer to a tournament series that is geared for Div 3 and below. So now you're bringing in the Div 4 teams into Low Inc. And that changed Low Inc. And that decision didn't just change Low Inc. That changed the entire lower level scene in general. Because everybody now, whether it's an established tournament now or a new pop-up one that's trying to copy Low Inc., everybody is now Div 4 and below. There are no other tournaments that are lower than that other than Little Squid League, which I give a lot of credit to Little Squid League for trying to differentiate themselves from all those other tournaments to targeting the like Div 6 and below. Whatever Div 6 and below is nowadays, I have no idea, and you guys don't either. In fact, I don't think anybody's even claiming to be Div 6 and below. You're either Div 5 or you're just something above that at this point. But Low Inc. changing to Div 4 definitely changed things across the board. For better or for worse, it did change things, and it brought Low Inc. a lot closer to SAC. Should it be close enough to where you can't make alpha bracket, but you make top 8? In my mindset, that's not the main issue as to what's happening here. We'll get into a little bit more of that down the road. But here's something I want to point out right now. I counted 97 teams that played in SAC this season. Now, I did this last night. Full disclosure, sometimes I like to drink a little bit when I'm writing Popcast episodes. And there's not like the SAC Discord scoreboard thing doesn't have like listed out numbered. So like you have to actually count them yourselves. And sometimes counting gets a little funky. But by my counts, and don't take this don't take this with a grain of salt. I'm counting 97 teams that played in SAC, made an appearance, like played at least one set. Like Amnesia played one game and dropped. Mahi Masoon played us in round 4, and after we beat them, they dropped, which killed our opponent win percentage, but we're not griping about that. So 97 teams played in SAC this season. Of these 97 teams, only 10 are currently banned outright from Low Inc. Either because they won it or they got good enough results in SAC or an outside tournament to where they could not participate in Low Inc. Only 10 teams. That means 87 teams of the 97 in theory. Now, again, we're lowering the bar for Low Inc., so that number might go up for this next month. But 87 of these 97 teams could have played in at least the February Low Inc. Now, I like using numbers to explain things. One thing I can't really do is compare that number to what the number was last year. I would assume there's still a good chunk of teams that played in last year's SAC that would have been eligible for Low Inc. at the same time. But would it be doggone near 90% of the teams that signed up for SAC? I would be willing to bet that is not the case. So somebody pointed out after SAC 1, this is just Low Inc. with like a few high Inc. teams into it. And now that we've had the full season to go through and look at it, they're right. This is basically SAC with some high Inc. teams into it. But here's another thing I want to point out. As we're comparing the two leagues or tournament series together, a lot of these teams did not play in SAC. A lot of teams did not play in SAC or only played in one tournament in SAC. And a lot of these teams, I'm about to mention a ton of these teams, that if they had actually played in 3 or 4 tournaments, you would think they might have had an opportunity to make top 8. Like, legit have an opportunity to make top 8. Here are some teams that only played in one tournament. Just one tournament in SAC. Tyrant Inc., a team that did really well in Midpoint Cup that I'll get to after this. They only played in one tournament. Solution. Now, they're an EU team, but they played in one tournament and they got 50 points off of it. Xylo. Having a Xylo moment, which I'm assuming means they just don't play in anything. I guess we all have Xylo moments every now and then. They played in one SAC tournament, got top cut, and they're moving on from there. Unknown Squids. Now, these guys disbanded, but again, they played in one tournament and they got 65 points off of that. Imagine if they did more. Obviously, Rising Matrix, but as we found out from Aquatic Cup, okay, Rising Matrix is too good for SAC. If for some context, they beat up on everybody in the top 8 last tournament except for Avalanche. Well, they played Avalanche in Aquatic Cup and swept them as well. So there you go. They've now officially destroyed everybody in the top 8. I guess except for Symphony, but I don't think Symphony wants a piece of them because I know none of us do either. So Rising Matrix proving they're too good, but again, they only played one tournament. What if Rising Matrix started out at the opener? Well, they would have won this entire series. But again, keep that in mind. Aqua Affinity. These guys played in one tournament. I think they only got like 15 points off of it or something. But they're an alpha bracket contender every time they sign up for low ink, especially with how they played last month. They might be a top 10 low ink team now, heading into this upcoming low ink. So Aqua Affinity, if they had played in 3 other tournaments, they could have just used tournament 1 as just like a bad tournament and then moved on from there. Those are teams, and here's the list of teams that I could be wrong about this. I might mess up on one of them. But here's a long list of teams that do play in low ink, but didn't play in a single SAC tournament this season. Check out this list. Inky Go-Go's, the team that consistently wins beta bracket, gets upset against teams in SOS, and is a contender to win low ink every time they sign up. Port Raccoon. These guys straight up banned from low ink. I would assume they're still good for SAC though. The reason we banned them is because they were like they're like Div 1 in the German league, I believe, which we associate Div 1 in the German league to Div 3, I think, in Ludi. But I would assume Port Raccoon is still legal for SAC. I could be wrong about that, but they didn't play. Battle Chip. Now, this is a new team. I think they formed in the middle of SAC season, but Battle Chip seems to be like a top 8 contender team if you just look at the teams that made top 8. The Deep Fried Octolings. Man, I said this last week. I would have loved to play these guys in SAC. I would have loved to see them in a tournament setting because it seems like they can hold their own with some of the best teams now. Now, I said that, and they reached out to me asking for a scrim. It's like, no, I don't care about practice. I want to play you guys in a competitive setting. The Deep Fried Octolings didn't play in a single SAC tournament. Synergy. I don't know what to think about Synergy. And the reason I don't is because they don't play anything outside of Minnow Cup and low ink. So we don't really get a good test of what they can do with teams above their skill level, if they can hang with them or not. But you would assume Synergy is the top 8 contender. Tonkin's never had a bad tournament. And maybe that's because they don't play in SAC. Squid Row. Man, you guys are in chat saying, why is Squid Row allowed in low ink? My question is, why don't they play in SAC and do good enough there to get banned from low ink straight up? Unlighted, the team that can beat Squid Row consistently, did not play at all. Squid Knights, the team that is a lock to make alpha bracket every single time they play in low ink, keeps having Xylo moments and they just kind of disappear. But Squid Knights, the team that did play in a lot of SAC tournaments last season and has been playing in low, has been coming back consistently, have been no shows this entire season. No Geek Squids. You guys love you some Geek Squids. We didn't see a single Geek Squid team in all of the SAC tournaments we had here. I'm still going. Nova didn't play. You told me Nova wouldn't be a top 8 contender out of these teams? Zero Inc., a team that is vastly improving. We don't really see them a lot because they don't play in anything outside of EU tournaments and low ink, which we haven't seen them in low ink recently. Infinite, I don't know. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, did I see Infinite disbanded recently or not. But if they didn't disband, heck, if they just played in like 2 tournaments, they might have done it. Honestly, because remember, they played in the lowest bracket of Triple G on Sunday and beat a lot of really notable teams. A lot of really notable teams. A lot of teams that are banned outright from Low Inc. I don't know how many teams I just mentioned there, but that is a lot of teams that will play in Low Inc., but just don't touch SAC for whatever reason. And you can't tell me. Exotic made top 6 off of just playing in 2 tournaments. That's it. They played in 2 tournaments, and they were comfortably in the top 6. Like, there was a slight chance they could have been knocked out in Tournament 4 by not playing in it, but very slim to none chance that they would have. So all you really need is just 2 good tournaments, and you're in top 8. If just half of these teams played in it, just half of these teams, you tell me Xylo, if they played in just 1 other tournament, couldn't threaten to make top 8? If Xylo just played in like 2 tournaments and just done decently well, they would be in top 8 for sure, especially with how they played in Low Inc. Obviously, Rising Matrix, if Rising Matrix has played in 1 more tournament, they would have made top 8. But all these other teams, why weren't they playing in SAC? Now, I always want to point out, you play in whatever you want to play in, right? There should be no voice that sits here and says, you guys have to play in this, and you guys should not play in that tournament. We got told that a lot in the week leading up to the Triple G tournament, and it was really annoying and mansplaining. I don't want to do that here. But the question now is, why are so many teams willing to play a 2-day weekend tournament once a month, but not even touch a 1-day tournament that goes really quickly, by the way? SAC does a really good job of making sure their tournaments get in and get done as fast as possible. People still complain, but you can't make everybody happy. The morons will find something to complain about every single time. But why are so many teams willing to play in Low Inc. and not SAC is the question here. And the reason they're not playing, well, not the reason, but the problem with them not playing, as we're comparing SAC to Low Inc., it's not really fair to give a true sample size of the difference in skill gaps between these 2 tournaments. Because teams that are banned from Low Inc., Destiny Troops, Avalanche, Xanadu, rest their souls, Exotic, the West Broadway Grillers. Like, this is our last opportunity to get a shot at these teams to kind of like measure ourselves. And that's always in the back of my mind. I'm always thinking, like, how does Destiny Troops compare to these teams that are winning Low Inc. now? Now, we had like High Inc., and that was a good opportunity for us to kind of measure ourselves against other Low Inc. champions. And we made 5th place in that tournament, and that was satisfying for me. But it's always in the back of my mind, it's like, how has Low Level grown since we won Low Inc. back when it was a Div 5 tournament? And this was an opportunity for us to kind of see that, and we didn't really get that because a lot of teams didn't sign up. But why did they not sign up? There's a couple of things I want to point out here. And again, I want to preface by saying you shouldn't tell anyone to sign. You shouldn't tell people what tournaments they should be playing in. If you're a TO and you want more people to sign up for your tournament, that's on you, the TO, to figure out. And if you're satisfied with the number of teams you're playing in your tournament, then that's good. First off, I think the time change is the real killer here. The fact that Tournament 1 and 3 are EU friendly and 2 and 4 are just completely not EU friendly at all, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I think that kind of killed some momentum heading into tournament number 2. Yes, like the opener is always going to have more teams sign up for it than the tournament right after it, but when the tournament right after it starts at a completely different time and ends around like 11 o'clock Eastern time for North America. Yeah, it's I think that kind of kills some momentum going after tournament number 1. Here are the registrations. Tournament number 1 obviously was 60 teams. We expect that number to be the highest, which it was. Tournament number 2 dipped down to 39. Tournament number 3, which went back to 1 p.m. Eastern time, shot back up to 48. And then tournament number 4 dipped way down to 26. I think this time change, and it's interesting because what do we gain by having the time change go from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m.? Well, me, a North American biased person, I preferred the 6 p.m. time slot over the 1 p.m. one. It doesn't matter now because I have my weekends off, but we do have some players on our team that do work Saturday mornings. So it's always like a rush to kind of like, okay, let's just stall this term. Let's make sure we have like the 4 guys that can play. Let's make sure you guys do play until that other guy gets off, so that we do have some people that we can rotate out and sub and things like that. So the 6 p.m. works better for us, but I don't get how it works. I don't understand why SAC would keep doing it, knowing that it is hurting their tournament. It is hurting their registration number. I don't think they get a true benefit from doing these tournaments at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Now, before they were doing it at like 8 p.m., and that was with the mindset of bringing in the Australian teams. It went back when it was called like the Coast to Coast tournament. But now that it's doing it at 6, now it's just like it is like you're alienating Europe and and Australia. So it like going to 6, you're just making it like North America pure only kind of tournament. So I think that alone is kind of driving away some teams from playing in it. Now, is that driving away all 30 some odd teams I just mentioned? I don't think so, but I think that does play a factor, especially in the European teams. Tyrant Inc., Solution, Evening Chickens played in one of those tournaments, but I think most of them are kind of getting turned off by that, which is understandable. Secondly, I think there is a perception that SAC is significantly tougher than low ink. Now, we've talked about, I'm not sitting here saying teams are scared. That's not a fair statement to say. That if somebody doesn't sign up for a tournament, oh, well, that just means you're scared. What it does mean, though, what the point I'm trying to get across is that there are plenty of other tournaments that are available now that didn't exist last SAC season that cater exclusively or cater better to teams on the lower echelon of SAC, that doesn't give them better odds of winning the tournament, because for most of those teams, let's be honest, their odds of winning those tournaments currently are 0%, basically. But it gives them better odds of having fun in those tournaments. A lot of these teams, and I didn't really realize this until somebody kind of pointed it out to me, but a lot of these teams aren't really grinding in these tournaments with the mindset of being the next F team win. Some of them are just playing because they enjoy it. It's just fun. I was leaguing with a friend, and she I've talked about her team on the Popcast before. And she was excited about it. She was like, it's really cool that my team's doing good enough to where we're getting recognized, which is what the point of the podcast is to recognize people doing good in tournaments. And then she said she went to her team and was like, hey, Popgun was talking about us. And they got kind of nervous about that. They didn't want to be, it's not that they didn't want to be recognized, but they felt like me talking about them now made their like casual experience more of a target on their back kind of thing, and they felt like teams were kind of gutting for them. Now, I made the argument that they beat a really notable team, and I was like, look, you put that target on your back by yourself. Like, people were going to gun for you anyways because you kind of beat a team that does that for you. But that's something I never really thought about until somebody pointed it out to me. That even if you're a decently good team, you might not be playing with the same kind of mindset of being an eventual monster someday. Sometimes you just want to play to have pure fun, which is totally understandable. And that might be the case when a lot of these teams look at SAC and they think, well, there's some stronger teams in there, which means the odds of us having fun are not as high as us playing in something like Minnow Cup or something like Low Ink or Little Squid League, where the odds of us playing against teams closer to our skill level are higher, so it's more likely that we're going to have more fun playing in those kinds of tournaments. I think that might be a factor in this as well. And I don't think that's something that's really SAC's fault. I think that's just going to be the narrative going forward, is all of these teams with that kind of mindset are looking at SAC and saying, that's not for me. Which is probably really frustrating for TOs because they do go out of their way to try to make this tournament for everyone. And would SAC love to have like 100 teams sign up for their tournaments that are capable of doing it? Sure. But I think that narrative is always going to be there, that this is like a step above the competitive scene that you're used to typically playing in. And I think that's going to turn off some teams. And there's nothing really SAC can do about that. That's just going to be the way that it is. Now, one other thing I want to point out about this. Ludi doesn't exist anymore. It straight up doesn't. They sent out a tweet that said soon. You remember when they sent out that tweet? It was 5 months ago. If my wife asked me when something is, like when are we going to do this again, and I just tell her soon, and what I really mean by that is 5 months, like she's not going to be a happy camper. I'm not hating on Ludi or anything like that. I love Ludi. Ludi itself as a tournament is a great thing, and I'm glad Ludi exists. The problem with Ludi is us. And I rant about this almost weekly. You guys know, here Pop gun on his div rant again. But in the context for my div rant in this subject here is that SAC and Low Ink have not had Ludi divs that they basically can use to as a crutch to figure out who is and isn't eligible for their tournaments. SAC, I feel like, basically was put into a situation here to where they had to determine who is Div 3 and who is Div 2. My voice is cracking here. Thank you for the follow, name that I shouldn't be saying out loud. Anyways, moving on. Without Ludi around, SAC basically had to determine who is Div 3 and who is Div 2. And I don't think that's fair for them, but I feel like they've done a good job of that. But for going forward, we can't keep using Ludi divs as like the crutch to figure out who is and isn't eligible for these tournaments. And I wanted to point that out because I feel like both organizations have done a good job. Again, the problem now is now that Ludi doesn't exist, and so many other tournaments are saying they're Div 4 and below now, even though nobody has been div'd in 11 months, so that makes no sense. But what they're really saying is it's a lot easier for us to just let Low Ink decide who can play in these tournaments and who can't, and they can just look at them and say, oh, Low Ink let you guys in? Cool, we'll let you guys in. Oh, Low Ink said that you're not really ready yet? Yeah, we're not going to mess with you either. So I think people are kind of using that, and I think people are using SAC for that same kind of level of expectation as well. The problem is, since 60 teams are claiming to be Div 3 right now, we know where the bar is. We know Luau was the first team to get the kick out the door for SAC, so we can say, okay, Luau is a legit Div 2 team. Where they fall in the spectrum of Div 2, who knows, but that is where at least SAC sees them going forward, so that's probably legit. But for the muttering of figuring out who is actually Div 3 and who is actually Div 6, that we can't really determine, and that we don't really know, and that is where kind of this issue is starting to arise of, okay, well, who is actually Div 3 and is too good for low ink and should be playing in SAC? That we don't know. It's not just the 10 teams I mentioned that are currently banned from low ink but eligible for SAC. Obviously, that number should be higher, but without Ludi around for us to really quantify that, and no other alternative that is currently better for describing teams in this range, we won't really know. But my point is this. Until all that gets figured out, yes, both tournaments are closer together in skill level. It was always going to be that when low ink bumped up from Div 5 to a Div 4 tournament. Is that a bad thing, though? I don't think so. Low ink has been way more competitive and way more exciting than what it ever has been in the past. Back in the day of my team playing in it, low ink is a way better tournament than back then. Not that it was bad back then, but now it's a monthly major. It is a major, by the way, that plays every single month. Does it devalue SAC that low ink is closer to it? I don't think so. I think it's just our perception of what low ink and SAC used to be compared to each other. I think that is what needs to change. I don't think we need to see SAC as a tournament that's like the next big step up. Is it a next step up? Yes. Is it a giant step up above from low ink? No, it's not. And I think that caught some people off guard, or some people by surprise this season. But that is not the case. They're closer together. One more thing I want to point out now. Since I talked about we need to change our perspective and thinking about this, SAC is already doing this. SAC has come out and they said the top 8 doesn't necessarily mean we are graduating you from SAC. So it's very possible that teams that made top 8 this past season are going to be let in next season for SAC. When is next season for SAC? I don't know. I would assume with Midway happening kind of on a rotation, consistent rotation, that they're going to sprinkle in SAC with that as well. But I don't work for SAC, and I don't want to make assumptions or put ideas into people's head for things that won't happen. But I would assume that it's going to be more regular than just once a month, and especially now that it's just a 4 tournament circuit instead of the 8 tournament circuit it was last season. Or last year, I should say. But they're changing their mindset. So top 8 does not equal graduate anymore. And I think that's a good thing. You look at the top 8 and you think, okay, some of these teams are not, pushing these teams out of low level makes no sense. They're not ready yet. You look at how they compete in low ink, it's like, that makes no sense. And these are the conversations we've had in the past of SAC, of low ink. And this is me. This is why I say I don't represent IPL here on the Popcast. These are all my thoughts. So don't take anything I'm saying here as like, oh well, this is what IPL is doing for low ink. But I don't think we need to look at the top 8 and say, okay, you guys are automatically banned from SAC or from low ink. I don't think that's the case anymore. Again, most of the teams that made top 8 are there just because they actually showed up. If you look at all those other teams I listed, if they actually played in like 2 or 3 tournaments, this top 8 could be completely different. But half the battle is showing up. But I don't think we should kick teams out the door yet just because they showed up and they took spots that other teams didn't feel like taking. So, will the top 8 be banned from low ink? I don't know. Will they be banned from SAC? It doesn't seem like it. I can tell you this, though. Destiny Troops is gone. This is our last SAC season. To get to the point to where we want to be, to get to the place that we want to go, we can't stay in SAC the whole time. I mean, we're a top 4 team. I don't know if they're going to let us back in or not. It doesn't matter. You can ban yourself from anything. From those of you who are like, man, I can't wait for us to get banned from low ink. You can do that yourself, dummy. There's nothing that says you have to play in low ink. There's nothing that says you can't play in open invite tournaments until you beat low ink. You can do that today. Now, you don't get the allure of playing in the next high ink, if there even is going to be a next high ink. By the way, anytime somebody wins low ink, the first question they ask is, "Hey, when do we play in high ink?" It's like that was just a one-time thing, dude. Don't expect that after every single month that you win it. But still, like, if you guys want to grow and you feel like you're not getting anything else out of the low-level scene, nothing's keeping you here. You can ban yourselves. You can just say, hey, we're not doing this. We're going to go play in open invite tournaments. We're going to move on to Midpoint Draft Cup or something like that and play in those kind of tournaments. So I think it needs to go both ways. I think some teams need to come out and say, this is tournament. It is not good enough for us. Or this doesn't align with what our expectations of our own expectations are, and ban themselves from it. So that's just kind of the end of my rant there. I just wanted to point out, yes, these two tournaments are closer together. That's not a bad thing. That's something we need to accept, and that's something we need to adapt our expectations to. And I feel like the TOs are starting to adapt their mindsets of how we see these two tournaments. Everyone else needs to get on board with that as well. And that's the end of my rant. We should have high ink, but teams can invite a +1. Hey, by the way, this is not like an open secret. Like if you really want to stress out JPEG, ask him when the next high ink is. And I mean that by don't do that. Don't bother JPEG. Like JPEG, I had JPEG on the Popcast, and he basically explained like high ink was a really good tournament. He loved running it. It's I think it's the thing he's the most proud of. That he's accomplished in this community so far, but it was a lot of work. You know, that's like somebody making a really fantastic painting and then being constantly told, well, when are you going to make your next painting? Instead of just being like, oh, this painting you made was really awesome. So don't bog JPEG with like high ink jokes. Like, I don't think he appreciates it. I don't think he appreciates it, and understandably so. But what I say is the fact that people keep mentioning it should be seen as like a compliment. That like, okay, you created something so amazing, people want more of it. And honestly, I feel like some teams are now, I don't know. Yeah, I'll say it. I don't care. I feel like some teams are dodging SAC so that they can stay eligible for low ink so that they can win it and try to get into high ink. I think that's actually legit. I think there might be some truth to that. I can't confirm it, and it's just speculation. But just sitting here looking at some of these things, I'm thinking like, I think some of these teams would rather play in high ink than try to get into SAC. But that's just my thought. Let's move on to the Midpoint Cup. I can't believe I spent 50 minutes talking about that. Here we go. Our first ever mid-level tournament that we're going to cover here on the Popcast. First off, let's just get this out of the way right off the bat. The Luau Micklin Heroes fiasco here. So this was a group tournament, and there were A through H groups. What letter is H? Is that the 8th one? Yes, so there are technically 8 groups. And thank you, Falco, for knowing your alphabet to number ratio very quickly. So 8, yes, 8. All of these groups had 3 teams in it, except for one group. Luau and Micklin Heroes were put in Group H as the only 2 teams in this group. I looked at that and I thought, what in the world? That makes no sense. So I went to Luau's server last night and I was like, hey, is this real? Am I reading this right? Am I already tipsy? And they're like, yeah, here's what yeah, it's real. So here's what happened. This is the clues I've gathered. Micklin Heroes and Luau were seen as the top 2 teams in this tournament. Makes sense. I would agree with that just looking at the teams that signed up here. I think the process they had was, we're going to let you 2 move automatically into gold bracket so you can skip the group stage, but we're still going to have you guys play each other for seeding purposes. And I looked, and there is a screenshot. They were told both those 2 teams were going to make gold bracket, which is what I saw. And Skit says their set was on stream too. Full disclosure, I didn't have time to look at the stream, so I don't know what they said on that stream. They might have said something to that fact, that hey, the winner of this is moving on to gold, and the loser's getting screwed over in silver bracket. But from the screenshot I saw, they were both told they were going to make gold bracket. So that's why they were in this group. So basically they were given like a bye into gold bracket. Here's what actually happened though, because Battlefy is jank like this. Micklin Heroes beat Luau 2-1. Seems like a close set. Again, it was streamed. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But since Luau technically finished at the bottom of their group, and Micklin Heroes technically finished at the top of their group, Micklin Heroes got moved on to gold bracket, and Luau got moved down to silver. And they stayed there. Here's what's interesting about that, though, because it was set up. You can tell it was set up for Luau to make gold bracket because it's a top 16 top cut, but only 15 teams made it in here, and 1 team got a bye. So you can see there clearly is a spot intended for Luau. They just never got it. Interestingly enough, since Micklin Heroes only played in 1 game, they only got 3 points off of it. Since everybody else that made gold bracket technically has 2 wins, 1 from a bye and 1 from the other team they beat, technically everybody has more points than Micklin Heroes. So the seeding for this gave Micklin Heroes the number 15 seed in a 15-team top cut. So they were placed in a 2-team group. If you win, you get the worst seed in gold bracket. If you lose, you're going to silver bracket. So I guarantee that was not the mindset TOs were going with this. I'm not trying to bash on TOs. This is just more of a warning to everybody. How things play out in your head versus how Battlefy will actually do it is never the actual case. That is 100% a Battlefy moment. Absolutely. Now, Micklin Heroes won this whole tournament as the number 15 seed. Technically, the biggest upset we've ever seen in a Splatoon tournament. Worst team in Top Cut wins the entire tournament. No, that's not really the case, but technically it's true. So there you go. Again, the simple solution here, I've never heard of a group stage tournament where the TOs decided, hey, these 2 teams, screw group stage. We'll let them play each other, but we're just going to bump them up to gold bracket. It's like Luau, in theory, Luau and Micklin Heroes didn't have to earn anything. And the Heroes didn't earn anything. They literally got the worst spot they possibly could have got. So it would have just made more sense. Just make 2 groups that have 4 teams in it and everybody else has 3 teams. It would have changed anything because you still have to do 3 rounds anyways because everybody's got a bye. So it's not like it would have extended the tournament even more. And Luau and the Heroes would have earned their way into gold bracket instead of just being shot in the foot. Hey, we basically got the grand finals in this tournament in a best of 3 set. That made no sense. And I'll talk about silver bracket later. Luau completely destroyed silver bracket. Did not drop a single game. 9-0, as you would expect them to. But when I looked at this last night, and I was like, whoa, Luau made silver bracket, and like Squid Society and Thimbo IHOP made gold? What's going on here? And then I looked deeper into it, and I was like, wait, they're in the same group? That makes no sense. So now that I see it and I explain it, again, this is not to bash on TOs. It happens. This is just more, I didn't even know this was possible, but the more I look into this scenario, the more I think like, okay, this is the warning. Don't always assume Battlefy is going to have the same mindset you do. And a lot of these things I feel like you can't really fix either. I feel like you just kind of got to go with what Battlefy tells you to do. I don't do the Battlefy side of things for Low Ink. I do the help desk stuff. So somebody else could kind of explain. But regardless, I wanted to point that out right off the bat. For the rest of this tournament, I thought it was great. The Twitch stream length is only 4 hours. Mwah! Perfect. Midpoint. Your draft cup lasted doggone near 9 hours. I think it was like 8.5 total on the stream. This tournament lasted 4. I hope they take the things they did in this tournament and apply it to the draft cup. There's no reason the draft cup should be lasting twice as long as the normal team tournament. But I digress. Good things here. Not as many monsters signed up for this tournament than they did in the cup tournament back in February. Teams like Fantasy, Barracuda, Gamers Against Weed. Oh, come on, dudes. It's 2021. Get with the program. Rising Matrix, Narwhal Gaming, just to name a few. These are some really tough teams. And as we saw Fantasy in Testing Grounds, I believe, those guys are looking really good. But those teams didn't sign up this time around, which kind of opened up the door for some more low ink skill level teams to play in these kind of tournaments, which they did. So a lot of teams, I was expecting to look at this and see a lot of new faces I'm not really familiar with. It's not the case. I'm familiar with a lot of these teams already. It's almost like a normal episode of the Popcast, if I'm going to be talking about. So it was good. It was a good tourney. Allowed for a lot of other teams to shine. So let's give them some credit here. First off, looking at the group stage, and we're not going to talk about Group H anymore. You got the picture of what happened there. Group A. Teams in this one, Liquid Zone, Standby Rescue Squad, and Resilience. Liquid Zone is a new team to me, but I did look into them a little bit just for the concerns of this episode. They had a close set against Assault to Pepper in Triple G, so that makes me think they're around that skill level. They got honorable mentions in the Western rankings. I think that's just because they didn't play in enough tournaments to maybe get a better ranking, but they seem like a pretty legit, solid team here. They won this group, Stand By Me Rescue Squad, who I think is a pickup, ? And finished second place. Resilience got third place there. In Group B, I believe this is pronounced Loaded Diaper. It's a LODED, but the O's got like 2 dots above it, and I don't know what... I can't pronounce English words normally, so if you add extra like accent marks there, it's only going to get worse. So I think Loaded Diaper is how you pronounce this team. This was a pickup team, which is half of Miracle, which I think has come back to some extent, but kind of not, because On Crack still exists. I don't really know what's going on there with the Miracle thing. But this looked like a Loaded Diaper pickup team. It had like Dally and Omega with the notable names, former Miracle members. This is why I call them like half a Miracle. Thimbo IHOP in Neptune's Envoy, which I used to call Envy until you guys pointed out it's pronounced Envoy. So Neptune's Envoy, Thimbo IHOP, and Loaded Diaper. Loaded Diaper won this group. I believe Thimbo got second place. And Neptune's Envoy coming in third here in this group. Good to see Neptune's Envoy playing more tournaments outside of just the lower level stuff. That's going to make them better. They're a team that I talk about during Low Ink because they consistently do stuff in Gamma Bracket. I want to say they made Beta Bracket last month, so could be the future of Low Ink, especially when they're still coming out here trying to to grow in tournaments above their skill level. Love to see it. Group C had Yozora. No idea who these guys were. I looked into. I couldn't see anything out of their their personal player information. That team finished in third place in this group. The teams that finished first and second, though, love to talk about these guys. Ink Sink and the Crustacean Crusaders. These are some old teams that are both coming out of a dark, dormant stage in their team history. The Crusaders kind of went into a bit of a hiatus back over the summer, and then became the Wiggler Ahoy, Yoshi's Big Ferris Wheel, Big Yoshi's Fruit Adventure, like the Mario Sunshine team names. But now the Crusaders are back being the Crusaders that we all know and love. I believe a team that's older than us, than Destiny Troops. So we've played those guys a lot in the past. We haven't played them in about a year. So personally, I like seeing the Crusaders back out and about. And Ink Sink, we haven't really seen a lot of Ink Sink since season 1 of SAC when they made top 8 and graduated. We've seen them play in some other like streamer tournament kind of things. It seems like they always pop up in like those when a streamer hosts like a league. I think we always see Ink Sink pop up in that, like I forget what the one was that some Destiny Troop members played in. It was like Johnny something tournament, but now they're in the Falco Flyer Friday Night Smackdown or whatever that is called. They're in that kind of tournament as well. So we haven't really seen Ink Sink outside of stuff like that. So seeing Ink Sink here back in tournaments, and they've been asking me for more scrims, so that's good to see as well that Ink Sink and the Crusaders have come back. Those two teams have played against each other. Crusaders won 2-1, so good to see. It's good to see these kind of teams playing again, is what I'm getting at. Group D looked to be this was the best group as far as parity was concerned. Everybody finished 2-1, so everybody beat each other. But this looked to be an interesting low ink group here. First off, the Luminaries were all players with no recent experience. No idea who these guys are. Hopefully this is a legit team going forward. We can learn some more about them, but no idea who these dudes were. And they, even though they had like no Battlefy experience, they were the number 1 seed in this group. So I'm assuming whoever did the seeding knew who these guys were. But Sky Knight, who I believe qualified for beta bracket, but probably didn't play in it. I think Sky Knight was the team that was constantly asking after each round when the next round was in low ink. That's why that name, that's why I remember that name. And Labyrinth X, another strong low ink team that has been improving each week that we see them play. I don't think they played in the most recent low ink, but they've still been improving, trying to get back to the alpha bracket form they used to be in. LabX beat Luminaries, and Luminaries beat Sky Knight, and Sky Knight beat LabX. So there's your circle of suck there, where nobody's truly better than the other. Luminaries and Sky Knight were given the gold bracket treatment. I don't know what the tiebreaker there is, but LabX finished in third place. Again, I don't know what tiebreaker is for groups. It can't be head to head because they all beat each other, so that makes no sense. So who knows? No idea. Group E. Some interesting things going on here. First off, the Tenta team. Literally all new players. Literally everybody on Tenta team is a new player to Battlefy. That maybe they played in challenge events, or maybe they're a European team that plays in like those exclusive teams tournaments that aren't on Battlefy. But as far as Battlefy is concerned, Tenta team is brand new, and they were given the number 1 seed over these other two teams. The other team, the team that finished in second place, Sabiki. Hey, if you know your trivia, Sabiki was an actual team. I believe they just used this name as a pickup, but Sabiki was the team that was in Div 4 in our group last season, who disbanded after Ludi. Now, who played for Sabiki this time around? It's the same team that won SAC All-Star a couple of weekends ago. Eris, Little Zerts or whatever. I think Evie kept calling them Shadow, Cookie, and Silver. Silver of Inkstrike Inklings, Cookie of the West Broadway Grillers. So that was cool to see that same team got back together and ran a tournament with each other. Little Uzi Vert. I liked it better when we just called him Shadow. That was a lot easier for me. So it was cool to see this team come back. It's cool. That's the point of the All-Star tournament, was to get to see other teams like that and get to learn like your other teammates. And now those two guys liked each other so much they decided to run it back in Midpoint and made gold bracket here. The team that won this group, there's no way I can pronounce this correctly. We're going to give it a shot. Pupsedge Spiel Spa Verwerschen Vergen Rung. That might have just been a spell that I might have just summoned a demon in my room. So if a portal opens up behind me and sucks me into another dimension, delete this VOD, because that might just happen to you as well, because I just said it and you heard it. Whoever this team was, they won this group and they did pretty well. They made it to the grand finals. So I guess we'll talk more about them later. Group F. I knew all these teams in Group F. Port Raccoon, Tyrant Inc., and Tonkin. Simple. Port Raccoon is the past of Low Inc. Tyrant Inc. is the present. Well, maybe with how they played in this tournament, maybe they might not be the present anymore. But Tonkin is the future. So it was cool to see these teams all together. Port Raccoon and Tyrant Inc. are EU. I didn't know what Tonkin was, so I looked at their Twitter page, and their Twitter page literally read as 3 enchiladas and a white girl. I don't know what that means. Again, those are their words, not mine. But if I could interpret that, I would assume it means they're not EU. So let's go with that. Regardless, the past, present, and future all finished in that kind of standing. Port Raccoon, the team banned from Low Inc., got 3-0. Tyrant Inc., the team currently eligible for Low Inc., as of me saying this right now, 2-1. Tonkin went 1-2. We'll talk more about those teams coming up. Group G, the last group here. Squid Society, Do Re Mi Pickup, and the West Broadway Grillers. The one team I want to talk about here, because I don't know the pickup team, Squid Society. These guys are improving dramatically. They went 3-3 in the February Low Inc. I think they played in Gamma Bracket because some teams dropped, but technically they did not qualify for Gamma Bracket. They made top cuts in Middle Cup of Rainmaker, though, a couple of weeks later. So there's some dramatic improvement right there. And now they won this group, beating the Do Re Mi Pickup and the West Broadway Grillers. That makes me think that maybe their Low Inc. appearance was more of a fluke than just like oh, well, that's cute, this team is improving. No, I don't think they're improving. I think they were just always this decently good, and that Low Inc. tournament was just more of a fluke than anything. So maybe our perception with how Squid Society has been playing recently needs to change how we think of them, because they seem to be pretty good, pretty sneakily good. And if they have another really great tournament, we might just drop that sneaky good label off of them and just call them straight up good. But I want to put that out. Every win in this group came at 2-1. So this was a really competitive group. Squid Society taking first place. Do Re Mi Pickup number 2, and West Broadway Grillers number 3. And of course, Group H, very competitive group. Michelin Heroes versus Luau. Luau didn't win a single great game in the group stage. Those guys suck. I can't believe they're ranked higher than us. Let's look quickly at the silver bracket, gold bracket, and then we'll call it a day. How's that sound? Four enchiladas. I missed an enchilada. My bad. Again, their words, not mine. Do not take that out of context. Let's look at silver brackets. My goodness, this was uncompetitive. Everything was 3-0 sweeps in round 1. Round 2, There is one set we want to talk about in round 2 here. Tonkin versus the West Broadway Grillers. 3-2 in the favor of the West Broadway Grillers. I like seeing this, and I think the Grillers should be excited about this win as well. The Grillers have been on a little bit of a downward, not a downward spiral. They've just been in a bit of a rut. It happens. Every team just has like a bad month or so. I would assume the Grillers are not happy with how they finished in SAC this upcoming season, but taking on a team like Tonkin that has yet to have a bad tournament that they play in. I say that every single time. They have not had a bad tournament yet, and I still think that's the case here. I think it's really good for the West Broadway Grillers to get this win and to say, look, we're still the monster a lot of teams assumed us to be, and we're not letting you pass us just yet. So it's good. I like seeing younger teams, newer teams come up into the scene and start knocking off some people. I like it even more when I see teams that grew up with Destiny Troops kind of stiff arm some of these other teams and say, no, we're not letting you pass us just yet. Like this is where we're going to be, and we're not letting you keep it. And Debbie said it was a reverse sweep there. There you go. Experience kind of taking over there. Experience you would expect from the Grillers. So I think that is a win the Grillers needed to have. And I think that is something they're excited about and they can build off of going forward. Wait a minute. This just dawned on me. Cookie didn't play in this, did he? If Cookie was playing with that other group, or did Cookie not play with that other group? Because did Cookie play with the Grillers or did he play with the pickup? That's what I want to know. Regardless, the Grillers beat Tonkin here 3-2 and then went on to be the sacrificial lamb to a pissed-off Luau team that won this entire bracket 9-0 without dropping a single set. I will talk about the third-place match, though. Labyrinth X and Tonkin. This one went the full best of 7. Tonkin winning 4 games to 3 of Labyrinth X. Cookie played with Sabiki. Okay, that's interesting. Labyrinth X... again, I kind of talked about they're a former Alpha Bracket team that are back on the rise, getting a good result here. It looked like they're pretty even with Tonkin, which is good because Tonkin getting third place in Silver Bracket here is good for them. Sweeping Resilience in round 1 as well. So Tonkin getting third place here, I still give them credit. I said they've never had a bad tournament. I think third place in a Silver Bracket mid-level tournament still qualifies as having a good tournament for Tonkin. And obviously, congratulations, Luau. You shouldn't have been here, but you were, and you took care of business. You know what? You got to give credit. When a team gets into a bracket, you know they didn't want or what everyone expected them to do. A lot of the times we see that team shoot themselves in the foot by tripping up earlier in the round. No, Luau took care of business. They should not have been here, obviously, but going 9-0 proves how good they really are, that they didn't really need to be there. It would have been better to see them in gold bracket, though, but it is what it is. Let's look at gold bracket real quick. A couple of matches I want to point out from this one. First off, Thimble IHOP versus Squid Society. I talked about Squid Society being sneaky good. Well, Thimble IHOP is proving they're just good. Another team, kind of like the Grillers, they just kind of had a bad rut of things, have come back out of it on the better side here. Beating Squid Society here 3-1, moving on to the top 8. Thimble IHOP finishing top 8 in a midpoint tournament. Not too shabby, getting knocked out by Tyrant Inc. here. Micklin Heroes versus Port Raccoon, going 3-2. Port Raccoon, I'm curious about those guys because I personally haven't seen them since we got rid of them, since we told them this is your last low ink, win it or get out, and they didn't win it, so they got out. I haven't really been keeping up with them since then. They've been doing pretty decently well as far as the monthly rankings are concerned. In fact, in February, their team ranked right above us at number 56. Okay. But backing it up here, they took the team that won. In fact, they gave Port Raccoon, or they gave the Heroes their best opponent of the entire tournament. So taking them to a game 5 in a best of 5 set. losing 3-2. So Port Raccoon, good result there, which makes it even more interesting what happened in the third place match, because Tyrant Inc., who is a surprise to everybody here, this low Inc. team coming out of nowhere and just dominating this tournament, getting the third place match. How were they able to beat Port Raccoon 4-0 though? That I'm curious to see. That has the making of Port Raccoon just dropped and Tyrant Inc. just got the win. I have a hard time believing that Port Raccoon was just one game away from beating Midpoint Heroes, and then they just get 4-0'd by Tyrant Inc. Not to take anything from Tyrant Inc. And people are saying they dropped. Okay, that was my assumption when I just looked at that score. I was like, dang, Tyrant Inc. just swept them 4-0? That Tyrant Inc. pretty good. So, but still, credit where credit is due. Showing up is half the battle. Tyrant Inc. showed up, Port Raccoon didn't. So there you go. Tyrant Inc. gets the win there, and they get they get the bronze medal and gold bracket. And lastly, grand finals here. Midpoint Heroes swept 4-0 over the Pubs and the Demon Portal team. Whoever those guys were. I did look into this team. I don't really recognize who these guys were. They all played in the last Midpoint tournament. So I couldn't really figure out where to what. Here's just the names of these players, because I do want to give them credit because they finished in second place in this tournament. Trixie Queen, Gentox, Too Fresh for You, Psycho, and Pito. Okay, I hate commentating some of you people. I swear. You do not make it easy on us. So there you go. Whoever those guys were, congratulations to them. And congratulations to Midpoint Heroes for being the first team ever to win a top 15 tournament as the number 15 seed. Biggest upsets of all time. Closing for the Midpoint tournament. This is an important tournament, guys. Midpoint, I hate on Midpoint. Well, I don't hate on them, but I point out a lot of the things they do that are bad. But this is an important tournament. Midpoint is we need more mid-level tournaments. We need more tournaments aimed at this particular group. It's great that Midpoint Heroes can play in a tournament with Squid Society and Thimble IHOP and Tyrant Inc. That's really good for those teams. So and Midpoint Heroes being like the cutoff for that. So like we talked about Low Inc. and SAC being like being too close to each other. Well, let's start changing our mindset. Let's start comparing Low Inc. to Midpoint. Let's start comparing SAC to Midpoint instead of each other. Let's lump those two together and start comparing them against mid-level tournaments, which we need more of. So it's good to see the success here of Midpoint. I hope they take the format that they had here, this quicker format, into account for how they do the Draft Cup that they like to do. Draft Cup doesn't need to be groups into double limb. They did groups into single limb here, and it worked out perfectly for the most part, except for the Group H fiasco. And it seemed like a good tournament. And you know what? For a lot of these people that are signing up for Low Inc. and they have like no. I haven't played the game I haven't played the game in like a year, so I should be playing in Low Inc. No, if you haven't played the game in about a year, go play in something like Midpoint and prove that you suck enough to play in Low Inc. So that's another reason why Midpoint tournaments are important. It helps out Low Inc. a lot, really, because a lot of times people ask for an exemption and we tell them, no, go play in an open invite tournament. Well, they don't want to play in an open invite tournament. Well, how about a skill cap tournament that's better than Low Inc? Why don't you go play in that? I think more teams would be open to using rehab for Midpoint instead of doing something like Low Inc. So that helps out Low Inc. a lot that we have more tournaments like that. And there you go. I was as I was writing this out last night, I was assuming this would not last more than 40 minutes, and here we are at an hour and 20 minutes later. Maybe I just rambled too much, or I don't really pay attention. Regardless, we met our hour quota and then some. So we're gonna wrap this puppy up we're going to send you off somewhere else. I don't know if I'm going to do the... let's go to Ninja. How about that? I don't know if I'm going to do the... I don't know if I'm going to do the low ink preview on Monday or if I'm going to wait again until the next Thursday to do it. We'll see what all there is to talk about. But there'll be a lot to talk about with low ink coming up. If you would like to be a part of the Popcast in any way, which some of you have reached out to me and I've told you I'll wait until I find an opportunity to make sense to bring you on. I don't want to just talk to random teams. I want to do it after you've accomplished something interesting. But if you would like to be a part of the podcast in any way, maybe you're a commentator, maybe you're an analyst and you have some thoughts you would like to share. And you would like to have like a 30-minute segment like I've had with Magic 8 Ball, or Roundy, or JPEG, or Yeet from SAC, feel free to reach out to me. Twitter, Mr_Popgun, Discord, Popgun, #5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25. If you're looking for VODs, I put them exclusively on YouTube. I just lead them up for on Twitch for 14 days. Yes, Yeet. I might reach out to you later this weekend or something, depending on how things go. So we'll figure that out. We're going to go visit Matt, Ninja. Thank you for watching. If you have the opportunity to get vaccinated, make sure you do that. Make sure you keep wearing your mask. Don't be a moron. And don't put two teams in the same group at the group stage.